This podcast is sponsored by the book Eat Meat or Don't by Bo Bennett, PhD. Explore the critical thinking behind our dietary choices and discover the moral arguments for and against eating meat. Available now at sentiocentrism.com.
Anthropological insights on meat's role in human evolution. Explore how meat shaped human evolution, social life, and today's ethical debates, including pros and cons of eating meat and plant-based alternatives. Anthropological perspectives on meat and human evolution. You know, when we think about eating meat today, it's usually wrapped up in ethical debates, health concerns, or environmental issues. But if we step back and look at it from a really long-term perspective, like thinking about thousands or even millions of years, we get a totally different picture. Meat has actually played a pretty fascinating role in human evolution, and understanding that can really change how we think about why we eat what we eat today. So, let's start with early humans. Anthropologists have found that meat was more than just a tasty treat. It was vital for our ancestors' development. Around 2 million years ago, our relatives in the Homo genus began to expand their meat consumption significantly. This shift wasn't random. It's tied to changes in brain size and social behavior. One key idea here is that meat is nutrient-dense. It's loaded with essential amino acids, fats, and micronutrients that plants just can't match in the same amount or form. Those nutrients helped fuel the rapid growth of the human brain, which is energy-hungry. It takes up about 20% of energy from your diet, even though your brain is only 2% of your body weight. So, eating meat likely gave early humans the nutritional boost they needed to develop advanced cognitive abilities. There's more, too. Hunting and sharing meat may have encouraged complex social structures. Imagine your ancestors coordinating to track and hunt animals, then sharing the catch among the group. This kind of cooperation could have strengthened bonds and helped create the social networks that are key to human survival. In a way, meat was not just food, it was social glue. But of course, eating meat hasn't come without controversy, especially in recent times. When you look at anthropological perspectives, you get both sides of the story. On one hand, meat helped shape who we are. On the other hand, the scale and methods of modern meat production raise ethical questions that didn't exist for our ancestors. This is where concepts like sentiocentrism come into play, which emphasize the importance of sentient beings and the moral consideration owed to animals. And then there's the conversation about ethical eating. It's one thing to acknowledge the evolutionary benefits of meat. It's another to consider the environmental footprint and the suffering involved in contemporary meat industries. That's why many people explore alternatives like plant-based diets or clean meat, lab-grown meat that aims to mimic animal meat without harm to animals or the environment. When it comes to the pros and cons of eating meat, it really can get complex. Here's a quick rundown. Pros: nutrient density, cultural traditions, support of complex social systems, and historical survival advantages. Cons: ethical concerns about animal welfare, environmental impacts, and health risks when consuming certain types of meat in excess. The important thing is recognizing the full scope, not just rushing to judgment based on today's issues, but appreciating the deep roots meat has in our species' story. For instance, while going fully plant-based might seem like the obvious ethical answer, understanding where meat has come from can help make that transition more thoughtful and respectful of human history. And if you want to explore this fascinating ethical discussion on eating meat further, I highly recommend checking out Eat Meat or Don't. It does a great job of unpacking the arguments for and against eating meat with a well-rounded, sensible approach that respects all sides. At the end of the day, the story of meat and human evolution reminds us that our choices about food are never simple. They're wrapped in biology, culture, ethics, and the environment, all intertwined. Paying attention to these perspectives helps us make more informed decisions about what ends up on our plates.